What's up, fam? Mr. Broke Capitalist coming at you. Today, I just wanted to, I had a thought run through my head. When was the last time anyone has said, I'm so glad we have the Federal Reserve banking system? Man, it's a wonderful thing. And I'm going to go about and tell you why we should be grateful and thankful we have a Federal Reserve banking system. Okay, let's start with the family. What you have here on your screen is one of my favorite families growing up, a fictional family, but as those my age and maybe younger would know, this is the Good Times family. They were in the projects in Chicago, and they went through their trials and tribulations and things like that. But at the centerpiece of that family was this man called James Evans, right? He was a pillar of that family. He taught responsibility. He taught morals. That was his value because he ain't bringing a lot of money, right? They lived in the projects, but somehow they survived, right? So what's changed, man, since the 70s or 60s or 50s? Well, in my opinion, a lot, right? So I wrote down a few things because I tend to go on rants and tangents, but I want to make this concise. Prior to my existence on this planet, and I'm pretty sure prior to this fictional family existence on this planet, the narrative throughout our society was quite different. And I've been saying recently that, you get the narrative going, that creates a culture that will produce a political result. The narrative back then, 60s, 70s, 50s, was God, country, family, right? Personal responsibility, individual freedom. And you had cultural icons or systems in the culture, or institutions, probably a better word, that supported that. The church, the Boy Scouts, right? Two things that have been demonized recently for good reason. Individuals within those organizations really just did horrible things, painted those institutions with a bad light, but their underlying purpose, in my opinion, is still worthy of protection. So we go from, with that narrative going, God, country, family, and it created a culture of, I guess, what we would say today is a conservative culture. But that culture had this American exceptionalism in it, right? It was, we are victorious. We won a couple of wars. We are getting over this thing called institutional racism. We're going to allow all of our people to vote. We're going to allow all of our people to get married to whoever they want to. Loving v. Virginia. And that created a politic that was, in my opinion, more decentralized and family focused. It was more about capitalism, the family. It was more about people like James Evans trying to take care of his family. And his value, although it's, like Chris Rock said, I think he said, men are the only people whose value is judged in what you can do for someone, right? But the provider, he's supposed to provide and things like that. And Mrs. Evans was there to help raise the family. Now, you can see, looking back on this, I didn't know what I was watching there. I was just laughing, ha, ha, ha. But you can see how they work together to raise productive citizens. Now, if this was a real family, what's the likelihood of Michael or JJ being crooks and criminals? Like, yeah, they may have had their scuffles and got into some bad situations, made stupid mistakes, but what is the likelihood of Michael Evans becoming a drug lord? I mean, not the Evans. What's the likelihood of him becoming a drug lord, or JJ becoming a pimp? they're not worried about the cops. They're worried about James Evans, right? So what's happened since the 60s, the 70s? Well, one thing happened. We closed the gold window. And you say, Andre, what the hell is a gold window? Or what does this have to do with the family and the projects? Well, I'm not going to go into everything that happened after we closed the gold window, but you couldn't close the gold window without the Federal Reserve. I'll just leave it at that. Just, you can go down that rabbit hole if you want to. But with the Federal Reserve banking system, governments can create money out of thin air. So why would they do, why would a government create money, right? Because they want to do something and they don't have money to do it with, right? So social programs. So we often hear about the welfare state. Well, that was kind of came on the scene in the late 60s, 70s. And guess what started to happen? Well, people like James Evans started to become redundant because you had all these social programs that could be paid for by printing money. And so with James Evans, who didn't provide a lot of material to his family, right? They were living in project housing. He was providing moral guidance, teaching life lessons, responsibility, how to be a good student, how to work hard, go through a lot of BS and keep going. That was his primary value. Well, at some point in society said that is not enough. So what they did, they took the narrative and start fiddling with it, right? So what happens? Well, Federal Reserve started printing all this money, and when you print money, that is inflation, right? And so your purchasing power goes lower and lower and lower, and I'll show you evidence of that in a few seconds. Well, with the purchasing power going lower and lower and lower, there's a problem. How are we going to feed these kids, right? The dollar don't stretch like it used to. So the narrative was like, women power, get out there and work, you're free. And God bless them. My mother was I was raised by a single mom until she got remarried. If you're a woman and you want to work somewhere, that's your God-given right. Go on, do your thing. However, there is value in being a mother. Why do you think all these rich people, their wives ain't working? They stay at home. So not only the wealthy can afford to have the mom stay at home and raise their kids, right? But you see what happens. You take the male figure who teaches responsibility out of the home. He's replaced with the state. And you trick women into this. You push this narrative out there that it's noble to leave your kids at home or leave them with somebody else to go be a slave for some stockholders at some big corporation. So a generation later, now, what do you have? I can show you. You take the fathers out of homes, they're not scared of the fathers anymore. There's no father to be scared of. You can't even respect your father if he's not bringing home, tons of money, right? So people not listening to their fathers, and women don't see value in the father anymore. So it's easy for a knucklehead kid to tell another knucklehead kid without a father that we should go run off and sell these drugs. Why? Because this Klansman on the corner is telling us to sell drugs. So, racism, we got to listen to the Klansman, so let's go out and sell drugs. Nah, ain't no Klansman out there telling nobody to sell drugs. The lack of guidance in the home is one of the primary reasons why you had this big push of drugs in the 70s and 80s. You didn't have that in the 50s and 40s. Remember the opium wars? That happened in like the 1800s. So it ain't like drugs is some new thing, right? Billie Holiday was on drugs. She wasn't on drugs in the 80s, right? Heroin's been around for a long time, and so is cocaine. But you had the defense of the family was basically kicked out of the family. And so now you just got all these kids going to jail. And you can see in this form, Sentencing Reform Act of 1984, democratic policies with great intentions, and you see the horrifying effects, right? You see the combination of taking the defense out of the house, making the father redundant, valueless, and then his kids are being raised by just the mom primarily, and the narrative in this influential narrative that, hey, you know, got a strong black woman in the house, that's all you need. The mom is playing the role, the mom and dad, you know, deadbeat dads, you know, he can't come up with his child support, so he's a deadbeat dad. Meanwhile, he can't find a job. There are deadbeat dads. Don't get me wrong. There are deadbeat dads. There's always been deadbeat dads. But dads have always been, good or bad, is an influence on their sons primarily and their daughters for sure, right? So if you take him out of the family, what do you get? You get nonsense, chaos. And not only do they take him out of the family, they punish him for not being a role model, not giving him guidance on what to do in life, not for having to talk with him about bullies and how, you know, the ultimate responsibility is yourself. So self-defense, don't start no fight, but end it type of thing. You get no value in that whatsoever. It's all about material. And why do you say that? Well, look at this. One of the richest guys who ever walked the planet, literally. Kanye West, married to one of the richest women who ever walked the planet, literally. This dude has to pay $200,000 a month in child support. And if Kanye West keep running his mouth like he's doing, he's gonna be broke by next year, right? You mean tell me he's staring at a prison sentence right now? Can't come up with the child support, what they do? Throw you in jail. They don't even care if you visit your kids. They don't care if you're around. They don't throw you in jail for not seeing your kid. Think about that. They don't throw you in jail for not being a father. They throw you in jail for like not paying a debt related to your kids. Now you should take care of your kid, but this is a great example of this policy running amok. There's nowhere in the world Kanye kids need $200,000 from Kanye when they got a Kardashian as a mother. All this is a future trap to put Kanye West in jail and other fathers like that, right? It's a war on the family. How do you get to this point? Well, like I said, that narrative, it shifted, it changed like after the civil rights era, in my opinion. And what helped it change? Well, I've been saying recently, because I found the gem, that the African American Teachers Association back in the 60s was actively and was successful in changing the culture being taught to urban blacks, right? They were saying that this capitalism stuff was self-responsibility, merit was a white thing, and it doesn't work with black folks, so we need something new. And the new thing they suggested and implemented was basically socialism and Marxism, right? So that was back in the 60s. I'm a product of that. I think most people who look like me and grew up in urban America are products of that. We just don't know it, right? I had to leave the country, live in Japan for like 6 years to figure out that, hey, man, something ain't right about this. So with that said, now you got several generations that's been taught through the, you know, Department of Education, this socialist mindset, socialist values, and that narrative started to shift away from God, country, family to, you know, God's not necessary, the country is bad, the family is not necessary, the father is redundant and a pain, and everybody's a victim. So that's the narrative that's being painted, and you get a culture of what? Your culture becomes socialist in nature, very progressive. Everything's you see racism, which is a form of collectivism. Well, it's under the umbrella of collectivism. I won't go into all that, but you get a culture of victimization and dependence, and people start to rely on the government or expect things from the government way more than they did back in the day. And the government is constantly pushing policies that take away your agency and your personal responsibility, right? One thing I say about the Second Amendment, your right to own a gun is the ultimate responsibility. You have the ability to take someone's life immediately. You can do that with a knife as well. But it's you have the ability to take someone's life in self-defense immediately. You need people to teach about responsibility, and that's the ultimate lesson in responsibility. Well, they want to take your Second Amendment right away, and if you don't have a gun to defend yourself, guess who's going to defend you? The government. Guess who's going to take care of you? It won't be James Evans. It'll be the government, right? So this narrative of dependence on the government is what we're currently in, right? And you want to know the dangers of giving all of your agency over to the government? I'm going to take this way out there. One day you wake up in a bubble bath, right? And you realize I'm just doing nothing, right? I have no agency whatsoever. I'm not responsible for nothing. When Neo was in this pod, he was getting fed. Everything was taken care of by an external source. He had no personal responsibility. This is on the far end of the spectrum, but I hope it slaps you in the face and gets you to realize how important personal responsibility is, right? So now, I'm rounding this up now. You have a culture that is accepting this, government knows best crap, the family isn't necessary crap, and we need more social services. Like forget all these agencies like the welfare system or Medicaid, Medicare. We're going to do UBI, universal basic income. Do you think that would fly in the 1950s? Hell no. But now people are like, you know what? That don't sound too bad if we get a lot of money from the government once a month. I mean, I ain't making too much money now anyway. I can't afford the new whatever shoes. Maybe my dad will be able to pay me maybe my ex-husband will be able to pay child support now so I can give my kids more material because we don't need his advice. We don't need his influence. We just need his money. So this is what we're staring at. And who does this benefit? It benefits people who would like to see themselves controlling you. And who might these people be? Well, there's a group called the World Economic Forum, and they want to see a one world government. They can't do that if we have the First and Second Amendment here. Can't do it. That's just not going to happen. But if you control the narrative, which creates a culture, which passes legislation that would eventually erode your First and Second Amendment, if not get rid of it, then, hey, there you go. One world government. And again, I'm going to circle this back to the Federal Reserve System and inflation, which just means you put money into an economic system without more production. Inflate like you inflate a balloon. Here's a bucket of Kentucky Fried Chicken. This has to be in the 70s. One bucket, 15 pieces of chicken, 6 hot rolls, a pint of Colonel's chicken gravy, and big favorite for 5 to 7 people, $3.75. This is recent. You can get 14 pieces for $18.99 with, I guess, 4 fries. when I was a kid, I could pay 25 cents for a Snickers and 25 cents for a bag of Lay's potato chips. Today in California, you're almost paying $5 for it. It's 1,000% in one lifetime. You can't do that unless you have a Federal Reserve banking system that is printing out fiat currency. So we got to be happy that we have one, right? That your savings that you save is dwindling to nothing, right? Got to be happy about that, right? All right, man. So why y'all going around praising and worshiping the Federal Reserve Bank? I'm not. Peace out, y'all. Hope you're having a good day. Leave your comments below, like and subscribe. Let's have a conversation about it. Peace.